All right, guys, today we're going to be doing some watercolor painting. What we're going to need is 2 things of water, one for your dirty brushes and one for clean water, your palette, and some paper towels to wipe off your brushes. I'm going to be showing you 2 different ways to do it. So the first one's going to be with a spray bottle here. You can also just use any old regular sponge, just dumping water. So the first one of dropping colors, I'm just going to get my paper really wet here, and this one is going to be a little bit harder to control, but it can be really nice effects because it just kind of drops into that water. And if you feel like your colors aren't moving enough, you can always spray it down, add a little bit more. You also want to make sure that if you can, you want to tape down your pieces of paper. It's going to be really nice to hold that down. You don't have to, but the paper will end up buckling the wetter it gets, especially for this method, because we're going to be using more water with the spray bottle than we would normally just adding water to our paints and painting that way. Sometimes you can kind of push down on your brush too to also get the paper to buckle in a specific way if you're not liking the way that the colors are moving. I'm gonna go ahead and let that one dry as is. So for the second one, this one's gonna be a little bit more traditional. I'm gonna use a different color palette so you can kind of see different options here. We're just gonna be doing a little bit of some cactuses and some flowers. You don't have to do exactly the same design. Feel free to get creative with it. You can also use a bit of your pencil to kind of go underneath here. You want to do like some nice light lines there if you want to end up really tracing out what you're doing. So this one's a little bit more of a traditional approach to it, really just getting your colors wet and making sure that you can, go in with your lines. Once you have your outline there, go ahead and just kind of fill that in with water. The color will blend. If you just kind of let those lines dry as is, it's gonna leave a bit more of a watermark, which if you like that, that's not a bad thing. Now, once I have all of my water in there, I can also go in and kind of add some more colors. It'll spread, but it'll stay in the same shape now that we've kind of traced out our lines with water. And especially with these lighter colors like yellows and oranges and things like that, make sure that you're dipping your water in your clear water, not your dirty water, because it'll muddy a lot faster. If you accidentally mix them up or stick your brush back into your clean water, go ahead and just grab yourself some new water there. All right, so now we're gonna go in and add some flowers here. Now, if you don't wait for your piece to fully dry, the water is going to end up connecting. So if I start to say, do like a little sunflower in here, and I'm just painting with water, you can see how the color from my cactus transfers over into where my petals are going to start to be. You can also choose to paint with just water in the beginning to kind of guide your lines first. So that way, if you end up messing up or things like that, you haven't added any color into it yet. So you can always go back in and I'll show you. But if you wait for your pieces to dry, you can also do this more in sections, so that way you don't have to worry about your colors bleeding into each other. So now that I have kind of a loose outline with my water, now I can really go in and add my color here, and you'll see it'll spread into the shape that I've already created out of my water. It's still going to kind of bleed into the cactus a bit because we did not wait for it to dry, but like I said, if you'd like for these to be very separate things, you can kind of wait a little bit longer in between this, so that way if your pieces are dry, you don't have to worry about layering colors on top of each other and having them bleed. You can also use a lot of negative space, especially in flowers. So if we wanted to go in and do a rose, we can kind of start with basically like a little E shape. And then from here, you're just gonna kind of go in and do some little like squiggles around it. If you leave that white in there, it'll really allow you to see the difference in petals without having to worry about doing too much shading with your colors. Watercolor isn't the greatest for shading, so negative space is really going to be your best friend in this. Now, the wider that these get out from the center, you're going to want to make your squiggles a little bit bigger. And again, they're petals, they're organic. You don't have to make these any specific shape. Now, if we want to go in and add some leaves, we can also use that too with our negative space here. So I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then we'll come back to that, and so that way we can go ahead and do our drawings on there on top. All right, guys, so now that these are totally dry, we can go ahead and do any sort of like drawings, things like that. This part is not necessary, but if you did choose this method where you end up dropping the colors, it's going to be a little bit more abstract, more based on drawing to get your content in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do almost the exact same design as this one over here, just so that we kind of get a difference in style here. I'm using a micron pen. However, any sort of pen will work. Color pencils, markers, all of that is good. This is a mixed media paper, so it works for just about all of it. Now remember, if you guys want to do different kinds of cactuses, different sorts of flowers, all of that is very much welcomed. You don't need to do exactly this, but these are just different ways of doing sort of drawings and adding with watercolor.